Welcome back to Figuring It Out with Rachel Lee. I'm your host, Rachel Lee. This podcast exists for anyone who's in the messy middle. The chapters where clarity feels far away, but you're still showing up and sorting through it anyway. You know, figuring it out. Pun intended. If that's you, you're in good company. Make sure to follow along wherever you listen to podcasts. And if something in today's episode lands, take a second to share it with someone you love. You never know who might need to hear the exact words you're about to receive. And today's episode is a personal one. And we're talking about voice, about safety, about the moments that make us go silent, and the slow, sacred work of reclaiming our sound. This isn't just a story. It's a reckoning, if you will, a return, a legacy. So without further ado, let's get into it. Growing up, I used to love to write. I wrote everything. My feelings, my questions, my fears. Writing was freedom. Writing was how I made sense of the world. Until one day, it wasn't. Someone read something I wrote, not because I shared it, but because they went looking. And that moment changed everything in my world. My words didn't feel safe anymore. They didn't feel like mine. They felt like evidence, something that could be used against me. So I stopped. I stopped journaling. I stopped putting anything on paper. I stopped giving my thoughts a place outside my body. And when you stop writing, you start carrying. Not just thoughts, not just emotions, but entire chapters of your life with nowhere to release them. Maybe you've also stopped doing something you loved. Not because you wanted to, but because somewhere along the way it stopped feeling safe. For me, I was 12 when it happened. When writing stopped being safe. Something had happened involving a family friend, something I didn't share all the words out loud, so I wrote it down. What I didn't know was that someone would find it, read it, destroy it, and leave proof it had been read. He was a family friend. He had access to the house. My parents didn't know. My grandmother didn't know. And the ironic thing of that situation is that she always said how she hoped I would marry a man like him. Anyway, I knew from that moment on, I would stop writing. And I didn't just stop in childhood. Even now, decades later, if I'm in a personal development course or a coaching program and they say, we're going to journal, initially I freeze. My body still remembers. Not because I don't believe in the value, but because somewhere deep down, a younger version of me still associates writing with exposure, with risk, with punishment. It's taken years to even begin journaling again. And sometimes I still hesitate. Sometimes I still write like someone might be watching. And that's the imprint that trauma can leave, even on the things you once loved. And when you stop giving your thoughts place to go, they don't disappear, they can settle. They settle into your body. They shape how you show up in relationships. They shape how much space you allow yourself to take up in the world. And for a long time, I didn't realize how much I was holding because holding it all was normal. Silence became a skill. Being fine became a reflex. Functioning became more important than feeling. I became reliable. I became strong. People said things like, "You're so strong," not knowing that my strength came from necessity, not necessarily a choice. And there's a difference between being strong and never feeling safe enough to let something go. For anyone listening, silence can look like strength, but sometimes It's just what we had to do to survive. I didn't know how to put things down, really. I only knew how to carry them better. And over time, that carrying blurred my own internal signals. You don't lose your intuition, but you do lose access to it. And it takes time and safety to hear yourself again. As I've grown older and I've lost people that I've loved along the way, my parents, my brother, my nephew, my grandparents, something unexpected started happening. I kept reaching for their voices. I think I remember what they sound like, but do I? And I spoke about this in the last episode, episode 10 of Signs. When you lose someone, you don't just lose their presence, you lose their sound, their tone, their laughter, the way they said your name. And just a fun fact here, my name is Rachel. I go by Rachel. I don't go by Ray. I don't go by Rach. I don't go by anything other than Rachel. There is only one person in this entire universe that ever called me Rachy, and I was okay with that, and that was my dad. Oh, how I would give anything to hear him call me Rachy again. Anything. Grief does something strange to a memory. And sometimes I wonder, am I remembering the real sound or just a version in my mind that I've replayed so often? And that question has stayed with me because one day my boys might wonder the same thing about me. They might think they remember my voice, but will they remember it accurately? Or just the memory they've replayed enough times that it will feel familiar? And that one hits me hard. Losing someone's voice is its own kind of loss. Not often talked about, but real. And grief has taught me where value lives, not just in presence, but in sound. And knowing that, something has shifted in me, if you will. My boys will never have to wonder what I sound like. Because maybe writing may not still feel safe, but speaking does. My voice couldn't be stolen, couldn't be taken out of context with tone, couldn't be hidden or erased like a journal page. My voice finally was mine. And one day when I'm gone, my boys will still be able to hear me. Not the faded memory, not the guess, not the soft version. They will have my voice, my pauses, my laughter, my real heart. And suddenly, recording didn't feel scary. It felt grounded. It felt like reclaiming something that was taken from me long ago. Audio has become the place where my story can live without fear. As I've healed and reflected on childhood, motherhood, grief, choices, I kept thinking, if I had heard someone talk about these things when I was younger, maybe I wouldn't have felt so alone. Because I had good friends, have good friends, great friends even. But even the best friendships couldn't cure decades of silence. Not because they didn't care, but because I didn't know how to release what I had buried. I lived in silence, not because I didn't want to speak, but because it never felt safe. And trust me, I know I'm not the only one. So this podcast has become a place for my boys to know me, a place for me to reclaim my voice, a place to say things I've held for too long, and a place for someone out there to finally feel less alone. What if my voice could bring the thing someone else needed? What if my voice could be the thing I needed? What if speaking my story helps someone else heal theirs? This podcast wasn't born from strategy. It wasn't a brand decision. It wasn't a marketing idea. It was born from a girl who stopped writing because her words weren't safe. A woman who carried decades of silence. A mother who wants her children to always be able to hear her voice. A human who learned too much, too young, and alone. And also refuses to let someone else do the same. This podcast is my way of saying, my voice is mine now. My story is mine now. And if sharing it helps even one person feel seen, understood, or less alone, then every word I ever swallowed was worth releasing right now. The first time I recorded aloud, after years of silence, it felt really strange. Not scary, not exciting, just vulnerable and exposed. Hearing your own voice after years of holding a lot of things inside kind of does something to you. And I remember listening to the first episode, playing it back and thinking, is that really what I sound like? Kind of in a critical way, but not really, but like in a grounding way. Like, this is me, unfiltered, unpolished, real. Unlike writing, vulnerable to misreading and misunderstanding, my voice carries. It carries intention, tone, breath, pause, all the things that matter. And there's something about hearing a story out loud that makes it feel real in a way nothing else can. And I've realized something else too. One day my boys will listen to this. Not just the words, but the love beneath them. They will hear how deeply I loved them. Not perfection, not strength without softness, but truth. Truth spoken slowly, truth spoken honestly, truth spoken with intention. And maybe someday when they are older, or parents themselves even, they'll hear things they couldn't understand before. Maybe they'll recognize parts of themselves in my voice. Maybe my voice will remind them that they come from someone who learned how to speak again after being silent for so long. And I just want to be transparent here when I say speak again or find my voice. If you know me, you know I have energy and I am boisterous and I am loud and I love to laugh and crack jokes. But when I'm talking about learning to speak again, I'm talking about speak about all those parts of me that I kept hidden and couldn't formulate the way in which to talk about them. Before we wrap up, I just want to circle back, though, to the heart of the episode and share. There was a time when I stopped writing because I didn't feel safe. When silence felt like protection. When I thought my voice could only exist inside of me. But now, my voice gets to live outside my body safely. It gets to be preserved, shared, remembered. Not just for me, not just for my boys, but maybe for you too. If you've ever felt like your story had to stay hidden, if you're still carrying things you've never said out loud, if you've ever struggled to trust your own voice again, I hope today reminded you it's still there. It's always been there. Your voice is still yours. And it's safe to start using it again, even if it's just a whisper at first. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for letting me speak what I once thought I'd always have to carry in silence. Come back next week where we keep figuring it out. Have a great week.